The Broncos have made their way to the AFC Championship game. They extracted a win from the Patriots. The price of that overtime extraction, though, was their starting quarterback. And we're going to talk a little bit about the Hall of Fame. Baseball picking a new class. That's why we have a Hall of Famer with us here today. George Karl's here on After the Horn.
Hi, everybody. Welcome back to After the Horn. Ron Zappolo, Tom Green, Woody Paige. We are thrilled to be joined by one of my favorite people, one of the 10 winningest basketball coaches in pro basketball history. I won't run down all the teams you coach, but I know what they are. George Karl. George, it is so good to see you.
It's good to be here. Good to be with a bunch of old-timers like me.
George, we only have old-timers on this show.
You're overqualified.
Yeah.
You're good with us.
Hey, how you feeling, number one?
I feel good. You know, I have my head and neck cancers. My throat is always dry. It's always allergies and dry mouth and stuff like that. But, you know, when you get older, you don't want to talk that much anyway.
Yeah,
Exactly.
Well, you picked a really great place to live in retirement in Colorado, where the driest state in the whole world. Yeah, I mean, everybody that comes out here has dry mouth and dry throat. But
yeah, they tell me it'd be better if I was on sea level, but
so
I love Denver too much.
We were next door neighbors. I already told a story about our relationship when we were next door neighbors. His daughter would come and play in my backyard, and when she was like 1 or 2 years old. But I have to tell the story. A friend was visiting me. You know him. His name is Gil Whiteley. He's coming over to my house, and those houses looked alike.
Yeah.
And so he went in George Karl's. And he sat on the sofa, and George comes down. He thinks he's in my house. And people don't know, Gil did talk radio forever. And he's sitting on the sofa waiting for me to come in the room or something. And George comes down, and George says, "What are you doing here, Gil?" He said, "What are you doing here, George?" And George said, "You want a beer?" And so about 2 hours later, I said to Gil, "Where have you been?" He said, "I've been over talking to George." So
I was so close to your house. I just didn't quite get in. George, we got a lot to talk about with you. Everything from these Nuggets today to what's going on in the NBA. But I know you've made a film, a big part of making a movie about the ABA. We're going to get to all that in a minute, but we got to start because our viewers count on us every week to talk about the Broncos. First, your look ahead now to the Broncos, because everyone's talking about that's a great win, and now you have your backup quarterback to play the AFC Championship game.
Well, it was I don't know if I've ever witnessed my high, being happy, to then what the hell happened?
So sudden.
Yeah.
You know, and that, I mean, it felt like a balloon was blown up. And, you know, after thinking about it for a couple of days, I think Sean's going to have a lot of fun with the game. He's gone from supposed to win to now I'm the underdog to win. And I think he's pretty clever. I don't know a lot about football, but I think he'll come up with a game plan that'll be interesting.
But here, as you do know a lot about coaching, and I know you coached a lot of games when you were without your best player. Right. How do you talk to your team, and how do you convince them that we can still accomplish the goal?
I think it's easier. I think being the underdog and still being a damn good team. I mean, their defense is legit. And I think we all know you can win an NFL game with just your defense. But as a coach, it gives opportunity to guys that never have the opportunity. You're going to probably do some things that as coaches you wouldn't do. But now you kind of have to find a couple, what I call wild cards. You're going to get a wild card or two in the game.
You need a Jalen Pickett. You need a Julian Strouder.
I mean, we have the guy from Philadelphia won a Super Bowl,
right.
Nick Foles. And that was a shootout against Brady.
Did you see the Nick Foles statement on social media?
I did not.
He wrote Monday, he said, I really feel sorry for what happened with the Denver Broncos and Bo Nix, and my prayers are with the team and with the player. But I just want you to know that there's a possibility that you can still win the Super Bowl with a backup quarterback.
Yeah, I saw that.
He's talking about himself.
Hey,
And so
look what Adelman is doing with the Nuggets this last month without their best players. I mean, it can be done.
Well, every day at North Carolina when Coach Smith went out, there's three things always on the board: get smarter, get better, play together. And that's kind of play hard. Being able to play hard every night in an NBA game is an attitude. It's a talent, not an attitude. And I think the new Nuggets have been constructed, and since I've been here, I think the most positive way. I think their roster construction this year is going to prepare them for an NBA run.
Well, to talk more about the Nuggets then, since we're there, it's kind of an interesting lens now to look back at the Michael Malone, Calvin Booth impasse, that those players that Calvin Booth liked, that Michael Malone didn't necessarily want to play, have stepped in and look like they belong on the floor, they belong in the league. It doesn't mean one's right or wrong, but it does mean that it's different now to look back at it and see those players because of what they've done in the last month or so.
Well, I mean, it's still yet to be written if it's going to work.
Right.
I don't know what Jokic's injury is. It worries me that they're hiding a lot of information on that. That doesn't always give me a security that it's going to be okay. But the NBA right now doesn't have a lot of great teams. And I think Denver, I think OKC is a great team.
Right.
And I think Denver's the other team that can be a great team. I don't think they're there yet. But I think it's going to be a good run. And then their younger players, Watson, has come out of nowhere. But the one thing, from my standpoint, I've been disappointed in the teams that we put on the court with Jokic.
Right.
We got one of the greatest players ever to play the game. And in a lot of ways, I don't think he's had a lot of talent with him.
They've missed the window a little bit. They've
Speaking
spent
of
some of it.
Jokic, is it too early to ask you? You know the NBA better than anybody. Where do we put him now historically? Where do we rank him, or is it too early to say yet?
would that be above Dan Issel or below Dan Issel?
That would be above Dan.
Dan puts him above Dan
Yeah,
Issel.
Dan puts him above.
Well, I'm glad.
Because he put
No, I
on
didn't.
the
I put
all-time
Jokic
Nuggets.
as the best. Yeah, Jokic number one.
I am surprised, though. I'm sorry, you answer his question, but I wanted to break in when you said Denver's the team that can compete with OKC, but you were involved with a team that I think is coming, and you better be very afraid, and I mean the San Antonio Spurs, because of what they have got in the middle of that lineup and what they've managed to put together. And I'm seeing a San Antonio Spurs team unlike anything I've seen since they had the big two up front years ago when they won championships. But you were there when they had some damn good teams.
Well, I mean, they have in my mind, the Jokic before Jokic and Tim Duncan. I mean, Tim Duncan was very much like Jokic. No nonsense, not a flashy guy, but damn, did he play the game of basketball the right
And
way.
they had the Admiral at that time, too.
Yeah,
When you put
and then
two
the
of them
Admiral
together.
left, and then Duncan, instead of being an egotistical superstar, he made Ginobili a superstar. He made Tony Parker a superstar. And Jokic is the same guy.
He doesn't need anything. So many NBA players need either adulation, the ball, whatever,
Exactly.
attention.
The most humble player is Tim Duncan before now Jokic.
So,
You would have loved to have coached him.
Oh my God.
Oh man, just hey,
I mean,
pat him on the back and say, "Let's
before
go."
everybody fell in love with him,
yeah.
I was on radio here in town saying he's the best. He's one of the best 5 passers, not as a center, but
Just
in the
ever.
game.
Yeah.
And I think we now we're seeing it. I think he's trying to lead the league in assists, and I think he'll do it.
And rebounding. You know,
And-
that's a hard double.
And what I love about what's going on in the game is kind of the Europeans are playing the game in slow motion, and the Americans are trying to play fast.
Pace.
And the best players are the European players.
But you were in a situation.
I mean, let me
which-
bring up one guy because of the ABA. The guy down in Oklahoma City, Alexander. I don't know if you remember a guy named James Silas.
Sure. Played with
Sure.
you in
He
San Antonio.
reminds
Spurs.
me of James
Yeah.
Silas.
and
With
people,
Irving.
for people who may not
Bounce
know,
into the bump off, jump shot.
yeah,
Silas did that to win a lot of basketball games in San Antonio.
he had a nickname that people nowadays would go, "That's the strangest nickname." He was called the late Mr. Silas because he always came on at the very end of the game. He reminds me of Jamal Murray. They're the kind of
But
same.
he didn't have the
sort of-
range Jamal has.
And we were talking. You were talking about getting respect, and Jokic. It took years for him to get respect. The ABA, having covered it from 1970 to 77, 78, 79, something like that, on a full-time basis, and you were in it. We were there about the same time. You came along a bit later with San Antonio Spurs. But I always found it funny as a guy covering the ABA, and I'd go to NBA All-Star games, and I'd talk to those players about it, that nobody in the ABA was getting respect, and those players, you mentioned Julius Erving. I saw him play. He was with Virginia Squires, and I wrote a story, and I said, my ears popped when he when he went up for a dunk. I said everybody's ears in the entire place. It was like something that he was like nobody that anybody had ever seen. He was like an extension, if you would, of Baylor. He was better than Elgin Baylor because Baylor didn't have the artistic kind of ways that Julius did. But is that kind of what led to doing the documentary that you've worked on with Julius Erving and others, because the ABA didn't get the respect that it really deserved for the period of time that it was around for 9-10 years?
No question. I mean, I'm watching today's game. Come on, everybody that had played in the ABA, it feels more like an ABA game than it does an NBA game. NBA was possession-oriented, slow, big guards, pound it inside, give it to the center, and let them play from in out. And the ABA, it integrated the game of basketball for the black athlete. It integrated the first sport at a high level. It allowed the black player to play without passing a character test or whatever bullshit. Am I allowed to say that?
Yes, you are.
Yeah.
You can say whatever you want.
And whatever bullshit the biases of our ownerships had at that time. Plus, it was a time of black-white problems in our country. North Carolina was integrated. When I went to North Carolina, we had 2 black players. It was just the beginning of it. And then doing the movie and doing the documentary, to hear the stories was amazing.
How many guys did you talk to?
We have a lot of footage. We went to about 4 different cities: Indiana, San Antonio, L.A., Charlotte. We went around and brought a lot of guys to us that way. But we talk about Elgin to Julius. People forget Spencer Haywood, Connie Hawkins.
See, I was telling him.
So those 2 guys
People
were
kinda-
2 guys that remind me very much of guys who were somewhat mythical because the NBA didn't know how to bring them into the league or what they were. but they were on the outside. Like, what are we going to do with these two guys? They're explosive, brilliant players. And the ABAs will take anybody.
Yeah, and
Come
the
on
ABA,
in.
and the ABA didn't have a TV contract
No.
in those days. And if they had had what the NBA had, people would have seen a more exciting, better, wilder brand of basketball.
The ABA brought the slam dunk, the three-point shot, the cheerleader, free agency, and high school players playing in the NBA. All about
All that.
pro sport.
It cost Lefty Drizel.
I mean, it's
Lefty wanted Moses Malone to
Lefty
go win
wanted
a national
Moses.
championship at Maryland. All of a sudden, out of Petersburg, he was off to play pro ball. You know what else is a little thing? And I don't think it's that little because it didn't make it to the NBA. That red, white, and blue ball
I want
was
to.
fabulous.
I still think it should.
I
Yeah.
have one. I have one at home. Do you have one?
I have two or three.
I love it.
Yeah.
The red,
I
white,
thought
and
it
blue
was
ball
great.
was an
There
absolute
was
It
a-
was great.
There was a guy in the ABA that came along, and I watched him play, and you were saying teams played each other 17 times. Everybody got close because you'd see the same people over and over again, the same officials, the same players for both teams. And this kid came in from North Carolina, and all I saw was his knees were always bloody, and his hands were bloody. And George Karl gave another dimension to basketball that I hadn't seen. He was on the floor,
Floor
more than
burns.
you were
Floor
on the
burns.
floor more than you were standing on the floor. You were, and I just wondered, and I don't think I ever asked you. I mean, what was the sense of you developing where you were going to get every ball that was? And we're here to praise you as a Hall of Famer, but I've never seen a guy that cracked more knees and elbows and everything else before people were wearing pads. Was that just something ingrained in you as a kid or at North Carolina? Or is that the way you got to stay in the league?
I think it's a little bit of, I'm going to brag on my little town. I grew up in Pittsburgh. And Pittsburgh kind of had a blue-collar mentality to it. My dad was a blue-collar worker. Knew nothing about sports. My grandpa got me into sports. And the only thing my dad would ever tell me, he said, I just want you to promise me you'll work hard and play hard and make a commitment to it. He didn't understand anything about team basketball, anything about that. But there was a part of me that always enjoyed, at that time, going in the inner city and playing against the brothers and learning the game. And I always wanted to play fast. But the grittiness of the game to me was I liked outworking people who thought they were talented.
So you get out of North Carolina. Is it
You know, I like the arrogant,
Can I just
talented
say,
player.
John Roach used to always tell me, and he played at South Carolina,
right.
was an All-American friend of mine, and he used to constantly say about George, he'd say, I loved playing North Carolina because Dean Smith taught those guys all the time to take charges so we could run right over them.
We had a big fight in South Carolina.
Yes.
I guess it was my sophomore year.
Frank McGuire and
John
Dean Smith.
Reebok
Yeah.
and Tom Riker.
Tom Riker, Reebok, Tommy
and
Owens,
Roach, Kevin
John Roach. Yeah.
Kevin Joyce might have been on that team.
Yeah.
Jeez. When
Yeah.
you came out of college, was the NBA an option for you? You were drafted.
I was drafted by the Knicks,
Yeah.
Fourth round, I think.
fourth round, I think, but they drafted Ally McGuire in the first round. So I was offered a contract by the Knicks, but to go play in at that time, the Eastern League, the minor leagues.
Was it Albany then, or wherever they were? I don't know where they're.
I think it was probably in somewhat north of Philadelphia.
Okay,
I'm thinking somewhere.
Scranton or something.
Yeah. My agent was Donald Dell at the time, who was a tennis agent going into
yeah.
basketball. And he was representing Kermit Washington. And it was between, I don't know where Kermit signed, but an NBA team in San Antonio. So he got close to the owner, Angelo Drossos, in San Antonio. Donald went down, played tennis with him, talked him into giving me a 3-year contract. And I was late for camp. It was like a weekend of training camp. And I got my car in North Carolina and drove cross country in one day. And got in there about a week late. Tom Nasalki was our coach. Tom was about as different than Dean Smith than anybody I ever known. And I was kind of shocked by the talent being thrown into a training camp. Back then, we went 2 days every day.
Right.
We weren't very good, but then we got good. We made the Gervin trade, and then I think we made the Swen Nader trade maybe in the same year.
Yeah. And Silas came in with you as a rookie, I think, too.
Silas was a year before me.
Year
He
before
played
you.
in Dallas. He was
Okay.
in Dallas first. But had guys like Skeeter Swift, Stu Johnson, 3-point
Was
shooter.
there a time at some point then when it clicked to you that the league I'm in now is better than the NBA?
Not early. It didn't click my first year. I was just trying to survive. But then, I got to be a pretty good 20-minute basketball player. I wasn't much more than that. Doug called me a hustling stiff.
That's right. That's why I was talking about. He was on the floor all the time.
Yeah,
hustling
You know, a
stiff.
great move. You kind of mentioned it because I was covering the team when they were in Dallas, and they played in SCMU's gymnasium, which wasn't a big gymnasium, and they'd give away a pony every night. And I thought, man, I want to try and win this pony because I have
That's
a
an
daughter.
ABA story.
I'd like to take my daughter a pony home. I don't know how I was going to get
How
it
do you
on
get
the
it
plane
home?
or.
Oh, we have a
come
wagon.
by. So they moved, and nobody in Dallas cared. It was not going over well in Dallas. Moved to San Antonio.
Based
That
on bums.
became like one of the great franchise areas of all time because people had nothing. I mean, it was in sports. It didn't have anything.
It was
no
the
element.
only pro sport in San Antonio.
You mentioned the Gervin trade. Because you have your movie about the ABA coming out mid-February, I just saw George Gervin and Marty Supreme, the ping pong movie with Timothy Chalamet. Gervin had to change everything in San Antonio because he was one of those ABA players that if you were stuck watching the NBA, you didn't see for years. And then all of a sudden you went, what have I been missing? This guy is one of the most unique talents I've ever seen.
Yeah.
And who's to remind you of in the NBA?
Well, I'm trying to think of the lanky guys.
Kevin Durant.
Yeah.
Another lanky guy.
Kevin Durant. I mean,
Long arms. Yeah.
so many of the guys I look on who are great players today. Alexander looks like Silas to me.
But tell me, what also is unusual, we haven't mentioned it, were the characters.
Yes.
I tell so many stories about Wendell Ladner,
Wendell
who we were
Ladner.
talking about beforehand, where we flew over the Washington Monument, and he says to me, "Is this the Washington Post?" And Wendell was kind of off the wall a bit.
But he was a good-looking
the
guy.
Characters, there were no characters in the NBA. There were characters. I've never seen a league that had characters that were the coaches, the officials. We were talking about one of the referees, and he and I were close friends and would go drinking after the game, and a fan was giving him problems. He came over. I'm sitting right next to the coach. He came over and he gives the finger to the fan that's yelling at him. And the league says, we got to suspend you for 3 games. You gave him the finger. And he said, I have a witness in Woody Paige. He was sitting right there. And so they called me and they said, he said he was tossing a piece of gum that was in his mouth. And I said, that's exactly what happened. And they said, you're sticking with that story? I said, yeah, I am.
Oh,
And
my
so the referee called me. He said, thank you. He said, I needed that. I was not going to get my money for those 2 days. But there were so many characters in the ABA, and I think not only was the quality of the players missed, but we've never seen a league that had guys like Gerald Govan, who I said to, do you have anybody in your family? He said, I got a brother. I said, what what does your brother do? He said, he's in the import-export business in New Jersey. And I said, well, that sounds really interesting. What does he import and export? He said, drugs.
Okay.
Hey, Marvin Barnes.
Marvin Barnes would be
Never
at the top
fear.
of the list.
Spirit of St.
News is
Louis.
here. Yeah, I mean,
Spirit of
hey,
St.
and do one more thing too. Talk about the fights, because most basketball fans look at the fight in the Palace there with the Pistons and Pacers and go, "Oh my God!" And I said to some friends who were younger than me, that was almost an every night occurrence in the ABA.
I'm not sure about every night, but probably every week. The one I remember was I'm known in San Antonio for the Easter Day Massacre.
Easter Day?
Well,
It
tell
was
us.
on Easter Sunday. It was, I believe, it was the fourth game of San Antonio New York Nets
Right.
conference final.
Yeah.
And Brian Taylor elbowed me, and I have a scar on the bottom of my neck, my chin. He elbowed it, he opened it up, I'm bleeding. I go like that. And he's running away from me. I jumped him from behind. Just jumped on his back and hit him in the back of the head. And it all breaks out. Rich Jones was on their team. He used to be on our team. Then we made the Larry Keenan trade. So it was a 21-minute fight. And
21 minutes.
21 minutes of breaking up
Hey,
fights.
but tell people that's because you all played each other back then all the time.
We played Denver my last year, I think, 17 times.
There you go. So bad blood would, you'd see him
And
2
you'll be
days
young.
later.
Well, I got you next week.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Don't-
I'll see you back down in
I'll
San
see you
Antonio.
next week.
Yeah.
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 And every team kind of had
An enforcer.
an enforcer,
A John Brisker
a
type.
John Brisker.
Who people told me they were afraid of John Brisker, like you just kind of left them alone.
Trying to think of the guard that played for
Warren
Jabali.
Armstrong.
Warren
That
Jabali.
went to Africa in the off season and was never heard of
No,
again,
that's
never
right.
seen again.
That
Never
was
came
Brisker.
back.
Yeah.
Brisker was one I think we
Yeah. Brisker, I think.
we have
that-
a loss, and supposedly his child or relation to him was a defensive back
For the Bears?
Yeah.
with the Bears.
That
Yeah.
guy was great the other
Yeah,
night.
he was great.
He's one of the.
Yeah, I know. He's related to John some way.
Wow.
Did you read Terry Pluto's book?
Of course.
Yeah. Did that help, like, in your mind say, we got to do something on film to make this come to life?
A little bit, but I think my feeling was, especially once I got into it, guys like Jimmy Jones and guys like Matt Calvin, Willie Wise, Mel Daniels. These guys are they're soulful guys.
Sure.
And then you find the story, like Spencer Haywood, where he came from. Jimmy Jones never going to
He was
going to a school that had a white person in it.
Sure.
I mean, the stories of their humility, and then knowing how good they were on the court, and no one knows about it.
Yeah.
You mentioned their soul, and that is hence the title of the documentary, of the project.
I think that a lot of that was, that was the time of soul music a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we were the ABA guys had the afros and had the clothes,
Yeah.
wide collars, Larry Brown dressing up.
Yeah.
We had a lot of interest.
Yeah, Artis Gilmore, for instance, had the world's largest afro.
Darnell Hillman.
Darnell
Darnell Hillman would argue with that.
And I was on a show with Artis Gilmore in the last 6 months, and I said, "What does your hair look like now?" He said, "I don't have any hair now." I said, "I can't picture that in my mind because Artis Gilmore, and you're right, and Darnell Hillman were in the whatever you want to say about the first." Because it wouldn't be a slam dunk contest, it wouldn't be 3-point contest because that was something Carl Shear did in Denver in the ABA All-Star game, and had Glenn Campbell, didn't he?
Yeah.
Glenn Campbell
Yep. Yeah.
and
Yep.
Turned into his, like, about
Charlie
Charlie
Rich,
Pride. Charlie Pride, I think.
About a 4-hour.
We had Willie Nelson down in San Antonio one year.
So, yeah, at the All-Star game, that's the first time I met Willie Nelson, and he was just working at local bars and stuff.
Yeah,
And
he'd be-
they brought him out to to do the halftime show, and you go,
So
man,
1976, you're with the Spurs, you're playing, the ABA's drawing to a close. You're on one of the 4 teams that's going to make the ride over to the NBA. The All-Star game happens, the slam dunk contest happens. It's all coming to a head, the end of the ABA. I think of the guys, because 4 teams get absorbed into the NBA. There's a bit of a draft for the other players. But I bet you there's some ABA players who fell by the wayside, whether for their behavior, the way they carried themselves, or, the NBA was still stuck up at the time. Any of those guys pop into your head? Because the NBA fans never got to see the real
pops
Willie
into mind,
Wise.
In 1 year, the NBA had the greatest draft in the history of basketball. They inherited, I think, 36 starters,
Yeah.
7 or 8 All-Stars, and 2 or 3 Hall of Fame coaches. But by the merger. And unfortunately, people don't know it, but the merger was like we paid to get in the league.
Yeah.
I mean, it was not a fair deal. The NBA knew we had to come, and they also knew they had to get Julius.
Yeah.
Julius was our guy that everybody wanted. And again, I don't know how much you know Julius, but I admire Jackie Robinson a great deal
Right.
for what he did. But I also admire Julius Erving for him integrating the game in a different way. It was integrated in the 50s, but it was really integrated in 1976.
Did you go into the NBA and say, this is great? The NBA, this is so much better? Because I've heard others say, the ABA players, they went to the NBA and they went around, this is
Sucks.
This is bad. This is trash.
Well, I tore my knee up my first year in the NBA, and I had knee problems before that, and I ripped it up, I think, the first week of the NBA. But, everybody said the ABA teams, 2 years with Doug here in San Antonio, we were in the Eastern Conference Finals, 77 or 78. That's 1 year or 2 years out. And we have a 10-point lead with 2 minutes to go, and Doug fucked it up.
Against the Bulls? Against Washington.
I don't know what he did, but because the Doug, I goes like, Doug, you got any words of wisdom for me? He'd always say, don't fuck it up.
And you wanted to be a coach even after playing for Doug.
Well, you figured if he could do it.
If he could do it, anybody could.
There's a lot of things. Doug, in a lot of ways, was ahead of his time.
Way ahead of his time.
Way ahead of his
ahead.
time.
Yeah.
Now, there are a lot of things he probably should have paid a little more attention to.
Well,
But you have good players, you can get away with that.
Larry sent Doug when they came to the Denver from Carolina, and he sent Doug out to scout whoever's the opening game. And Doug didn't show back up until just before the game is played. So there wasn't like 2 days of looking at film that Doug went and got. And Larry said, so I sent Doug to see the Dallas Mavericks or whatever it was. And he said, so give him the report. He said, run the fuckers. And he sat down. And that was Doug.
and
the
he
whole
also
thing.
said, if you can't beat these guys, you suck.
He's a great scout,
that
as
was,
well as a great coach.
Oh, man.
Going back, though, you're wearing the Spirits of St. Louis, and you were talking about the draft. The Spirits of St. Louis, the St. Louis Hawks had been a great NBA team if
Pettit,
you go back.
yeah.
Yep.
And actually, they traded Bill Russell to the Boston Celtics. So St. Louis without a team because it moved to Atlanta. The NBA team moved to Atlanta Hawks.
If you trade Bill Russell, you should have to leave town.
Yeah. But
You're
they got a good player, not a player of
they didn't get Bill
So
Russell.
anyway, the ABA brings in the Spirits of St. Louis, and it's a collection ground for all of the other teams that are going, like Memphis that I was covering, and Utah, and it gathered up those players you talked about. Moses Malone is now playing for the Spirits of St. Louis. And not only that, but their announcer, they said, the announcer wants you to go on at halftime. And I go on with a kid. It seems like he's 14 years old, and he's interviewing me. And he sounds like the most mature guy in the whole world. And that was Bob Costas, who was working for the same station that Jack Buck and Harry Carey worked for.
Yeah.
And I went, this kid's got some talent. I'm nobody compared to him. And we were at a fight in Las Vegas, and he said, we were a couple of kids. And I thought, man, he thinks he's somebody. And he said, I know you thought he thinks he's somebody for me, because he was like 19 or something when they hired him. But the Spirits of St. Louis had one of the greatest teams in history that nobody ever saw or knew. Freddie Lewis was on that team, was a great Moses Malone, and of course the guy you talked about who got on an airplane and said, I don't want to get on no fucking time machine because
it's changing time zones.
He's going from Indiana to from St. Louis to Indiana, and it's like it's a 59-minute flight, and you're going back, and that's his famous
That's
line.
a great story in Terry Pluto's book when it's a playoff game and he's nowhere to be seen. And 20 minutes before game time, he comes in with a fur coat, takes it off. He's got his uni on and says, fellas, never fear. News is here.
Right into the starting line.
And then went out and scored 38
But that
points.
team also had, I think, Maurice Lucas.
Yeah.
Oof.
Yeah.
They had they had a Williams, a guy from the NBA.
Might have been Sly Williams.
A Williams was
Fly Williams.
Or Fly
Fly
Williams.
Williams was from Austin P, and the people at Austin P, whenever he got the ball, he said, Fly is open, let's go P. And that was the most famous cheer I ever heard in my life.
A high moment for the Austin P.
He was the greatest shooter. He reminded me of somebody you had on your team, Nuggets team, that was an incredible shooter that you suspended from the playoffs and used to live in the same area where we lived and became one of the great golfers in the history of, you don't know who I'm talking about.
JR.
J.R.
J.R.
Yeah.
He lived right down the street from us in Cherry Creek
I knew
Country
that.
Club, and he was learning to play golf, and I'd play with him.
Yeah.
And he said, I'm going to be a professional golfer, and he didn't become a professional
He
golfer.
went back to college.
But he
Went back
got
to
to
college.
be a college golfer.
You know, you coach so many great
But
guys.
Fly Williams was an earlier type of JR.
That's a good comparison, yeah.
Who's the best all-around player you ever coached? Because I got a name in mind, and I wonder if
Oh, man. Best
Good.
all around
I'm
player.
thinking Cleveland, Golden State, Seattle, Denver, Milwaukee, short time in Sacramento. Was there one player that stands out to you that said, this guy brought it more nights than not, and I depended on him, I leaned on him, I loved coaching him?
There's different types. I mean, talent-wise, Gary Payton and
Gary
Sean.
Payton was my...
Gary Payton and Sean
Payton.
Kemp were probably a higher level, skill-wise.
Did you ever get over that series with Denver?
Took a while.
I bet, huh?
Took a while, man.
Yeah.
I had Dan Issel on my show a couple weeks ago, and we talked about it. It's funny because you look at that Nugget lineup, and they were the 8th seed for a reason, and they weren't supposed to beat you guys. But when you look back at that team and that lineup, you go, that's a pretty good team. They just didn't know it yet, and they found out a lot about
And
themselves.
I don't know. Again, that COVID, I went back and watched that series, watched Game 5.
Yeah,
They were really good in Game 5.
yeah.
Yeah, they
And we
were.
weren't bad. We were just...
What do you think was the closest? Would it have been the team here that could have beaten the Lakers except for a couple of mistakes on out-of-bounds plays? Is that
Yeah.
is Seattle the closest?
Aren't you glad
or
you
the-
came over today? I'm looking at your face.
I'm
like,
going to change the subject with him in a minute, so...
You know, but, I mean, it isn't... I made a mistake in maybe one of them. The other one was more that the guy that was our out-of-bounds player had fouled out of the game. Kenyon Martin was the guy who usually took it out for us. And we had Anthony Carter one time, I think Kenyon one time. And people don't give Lamar Odom a lot of credit. He put a lot of ball pressure on us.
a long guy.
Yeah.
That hurt us.
Yeah.
And that was the best team. I mean, trying that.
That was a tough team. You had a
Yeah, we had
with Kenyon Martin and some of those guys. Nobody wanted to fool with you. I remember that New Orleans series, and there were a couple of scrapes in that series, if I remember.
Well, I mean, Nene was a physical dude.
Yeah.
Marcus Camby was really a great rebounder, held the ball, and good defensive person around the rim. We had a good team. It's I don't want to rehash the negative as much as staying with the
Let me
positive.
try a different tack with you, because I've interviewed you a lot of times over the years, and I've never asked you this. One thing I really admire about NBA coaches is that they're not afraid to speak out. Unlike baseball managers or NFL coaches, the NBA coaches, whether it's George Karl, Steve Kerr, Doc Rivers, Stan Van Gundy, they always use their platform to speak out about social issues. I wanted to ask you, what compelled you to be one of the guys leading that charge, and where do you think the state of our country is in right now?
Well, I love the movie coming out at this time because I'm trying to figure out, in my mind, and I don't want to, and I'm not judging some people that are different with my thoughts, is what's wrong with DEI? What is wrong with being woke? What is wrong with having an open heart to try to make everybody's life a little bit better? What happened to the empathy that our country once had, and now it's turning into whatever hell we're watching in Minnesota right now? It makes me sick. It makes me angry. And I worry. I have grandkids. I have older kids. I have a 21-year-old. I have almost every generation, 40, 21, and grandkids. And I know the historians tell us that we're in an okay place, that we've gone through this before, and we'll get through it. But this is the first time I've felt that we might not get through it. And so there are a lot of days. I mean, I don't cry a lot. But I watch the news at times now, and I cry.
It's one of the
I cry watching what I see on TV right now.
And we all agree with most everything you're saying. Do you think that sports is going to help us get through this, or not even sports can? Because people say, well, it's the way you can get away from what's going on in society. I don't think you can get away from it by anything, but sports has always been a factor of, you talked about it earlier, that when I first started coming the ABA, and people would say to me, they got too many black players. That would be because it was a black league.
Mm-hmm.
And a coach told me, he said to me, I start 2 black players at home, and I can start 3 on the road.
We've heard those stories. We didn't put a lot of that in the movie, but it's out there.
And we could, if we have a swing nader, we can put 4 black players because it looks like there's 2 or 3 white players. I remember that so distinctly, that was a period of time of adjustment in this country. And as you've talked about, the ABA kind of helped adjust what basketball was all about. Unlike anything until the 24-second clock made the NBA survive, because they were playing boring, lousy, shitty games. And then along comes the ABA with the three-pointer that, wow, and the red, white, and blue ball that Larry would take on the road and at least use in warm-ups to show the NBA players what it looked like. And just an infusion of talent that you talked about, that the NBA was struggling to bring in better players. And most of that talent was black players. Do you think now that sports can have any effect on what we're going through now?
Unfortunately, I think what bothers me, yes, I do. I think sports is still an escape to our fans. It's a release of our anger. It's our ability to come together and unify behind a team that we love and support. That still exists. That's still going on. But on the other side, the money of the game, how much money is in sports today, scares me. And now we're going now into college, and it's probably now going to go into high school. I don't think we have much guidance on NIL right now. We just had a great football game last night.
Yeah.
And I know the NCAA and NIL and the Super League is coming. I don't know when that Super League is going to happen, but I hear in 3 years, I've heard in 10 years. But I still grew up, and I don't ever really remember playing or coaching a game for the money. But I think a lot of players and a lot of coaches now play and coach for the money.
It's funny because Woody, you referred to it as a period of adjustment, which I think is extremely kind for the late 60s and early 70s when you're talking about civil rights breaking and Vietnam looming and all those things. That's also the kind of that time frame of the ABA. The ABA comes around at the very, right as civil rights is arcing, and Vietnam is changing the way the country was viewing itself. And, I think the ABA was a subculture still, but it was important.
I said that when we were making the movie, or when we thought about starting to make the documentary, was the world of COVID, and that was the first Trump presidential time, and the anger was starting then. It reminded me of the Vietnam War times and the assassinations that happened with the Black-White War, civil rights, and I loved playing with the black player. I loved being on my teams in the ABA. There's a camaraderie to the ABA that the NBA never really had, in my mind. Woody, after an Indiana Pacers game, there was a bar to go to, Bob Nedelicki's bar. We stayed overnight. So a lot of times staying overnight was, okay, we can go out and have fun. And a lot of times you interacted with each other. We just got more connected in the ABA. But today's game, with the amount of money that sports has in it now, I don't know if it says, that
Together.
It forces
that
you to be
rivalry,
selfish.
that anger.
You make a great point about the money, because we're the same age, and I grew up admiring and looking up to Ali, Bill Russell, Kareem, Jim Brown, those guys that got together to support Ali. And now with the money, I think we've lost a lot of that. So I appreciate anybody that speaks out, because I think today there's too much of, hey, I don't want to offend anybody, and I've got a lot of money, and I'm good. And I think it takes some balls sometimes to stick up and say what some of you guys say.
Yeah, my family has been taken care of by what I'm saying. But if you're asking me, is money a good leader? I don't think it is.
Hey, while we're talking about money, I should do a couple sponsor things. Because we're hoping to get paid.
What
too.
a great transition. You go right ahead. You do that.
We're gonna give George a quick beat here, because we want to tell you first about our friends at Furniture Row, because they were the ones who brought in all this fancy, nice furniture for us. We're very appreciative of them for being a part of After the Horn, and we thank them for what they do and how they contribute to our show. And also our friends at American Financing. You as a homeowner may be ready to wipe out the debt and start 2026 stress-free. The Fed is continuing to drop rates, and American Financing can access your home's equity at rates now in the low fives, which is just a fraction of what credit cards charge. Borrowers, they're saving an average of $800 a month. That works out to about a $10,000 annual raise. There are no upfront fees, and you could be closing in as fast as 10 days, and you might be able to delay a couple of mortgage payments as well. Give American Financing a call today at 855-581-5828, 855-581-5828, or visit americanfinancing.net/green. American Financing is Colorado's home for home loans. See?
Well done.
We haven't gone to the one area I'd like to go to. I told you one story, but I'd play gin rummy with the players on the plane. There were no charter flights. We were flying in the old
Piedmont.
ABA. Yeah, yeah.
Brandon.
And I would say to the pilot, I said, "Do you have to change the tires like once a week? Because we're stopping 3 different places to go to the Virginia Squires game."
That's a
but
long trip.
I was playing with a player and I missed a flight. I overslept at home, and the next time that the team went on a trip, and I'd fly with them all the time, a cab driver showed up at my condominium and said, "Mr. So-and-so sent me for you." And I said, "Why?" He said, "Well," he said, "he missed winning $50 on the last trip for you." So talking about money, the players were willing to send cabs after the media because they were losing that $25. That's what it meant.
But what's funny is the old ABA days, I think they did in the NBA too, but what I always missed about doing radio shows in the ABA, they always gave you a prize.
Yeah.
They gave you a gift
Something,
certificate.
yeah.
They
Steak
gave you a
something.
dinner.
Yeah.
Or they gave you something. I miss those. I like the fringes.
I thought about that recently. I said, they don't give you.
What could they give someone now that would
Yeah.
interest them?
No,
You know,
but
you
they'd
just-
say, "Here's your coupon for Wendy's." Woo, whatever. But in all of the research you did and putting it together, is there a moment that just really sticks out with you, whether it's funny or it's someone dying or whatever, that while you're doing the documentary, you go, "Man, this is a moment that should stand in time. That this was worth all of this that you went through for the documentary." Putting you on the spot?
There's a lot of them. I mean, I was. The Spencer Haywood story is a good story that everybody should hear. Here in Denver, nobody knows what Denver Rockets. The year that he had here is one of the most unbelievable basketball years by anybody in any sport. And where he came from and what happened in his life, why he got from Mississippi to Detroit is really intriguing. I'm just going to stand behind. I was just amazed by the soul of mostly the black players and what they had to put up with to be the leaders that now turn into being a foundation of the NBA.
There was some discussion a few years ago about the older ABA players being owed different pension payments and things like that from the NBA. And you would think now with the
Got my
giant,
checked about a week ago.
the giant bucket that the NBA now takes in comparative to the small pail it used to take in now, that debt, the actual financial debt they owe those ABA players, did you ever think they made that square? I knew they came along. Not even close?
Chuck, I talked to Chuck Williams a lot,
I mean,
and he
don't
talks
get
a
me
lot
wrong.
about that.
The reason I'm angry a little bit about the movie or documentary is it was done 2 or 3 years ago.
Right.
And in that time, we've lost another 9 or 10 guys, maybe more. And the alumni of the ABA once was 120. Now it's probably closer to 100, maybe even under 100. And yes, there are a lot of guys that don't need the money, but there are a lot of guys that need the money. And that little money, I just got we get checks, ABA guys get the checks the 1st of January. It's a small amount, but it's a meaningful amount to many, many players.
Yeah.
And when we're talking about billions of dollars, come on, man.
They could do better.
And because the people who got screwed, and when you talk about the players that didn't make the NBA,
Right.
those are the guys that didn't get pensions. I mean, the only guys that got pension was you had a combination of ABA and NBA. I never got an NBA player's pension. I played 3 years in the ABA and 2 years in the NBA. But you had to play 3 years in the NBA to get an NBA pension. Now, the ABA was supposed to take care of those guys. Some got a better deal than others, and there's still a lot of arguing about what should have been done. And I don't want to be ungrateful for what the NBA and the NBA Players Association did. They did make a kind gesture. A big, I think it was $25 million or something like that. But it could have been better. And why it wasn't, I have no idea. But 10% of our documentary will go to ABA players.
Well, you're not being ungrateful. You're just being honest. Give us one more time the nuts and bolts, how people find the documentary, what it's called, where it'll be, when it's coming out.
Comes out February 12th. I think that's a Saturday. Amazon will have a game on.
You know whose birthday that is?
Huh?
You know whose birthday that is?
You?
Julius Erving's.
I didn't know that.
Come on.
That's cool.
Pretty
Well,
good. So
cool you
Amazon
remembered that.
will show this.
He was born.
Amazon will have a basketball game. And again, I don't know totally, maybe all the details, but after the game, all 4 episodes will be shown.
Great.
Okay. And it's called
Amazon Prime.
Soul Power.
Soul Power. Gotta do that.
Yeah, it'll be must-see TV.
And they have ABA gear now, Amazon on Amazon. And go to Soul Power and you buy some stuff.
Well, hopefully you can help Amazon because they're struggling financially.
yeah.
So if
Yeah.
you can
it's-
back at that little startup project
You know.
and get them going.
So I'm going to add to that story just very quickly, since Julius was involved in it, that he was born on Washington's birthday. And the nurse said to his mother, "You should name your kid George Washington Irving." And she said to the nurse, "You name your kid George Washington Irving. I'm naming my kid Julius." That is, to me,
I'm going to name him after the people here in the hospital. Doctor. Dr.
You know, it's a shame that
I
there's
want
so
him to
many,
grow up.
There's so many
I want him to
young
grow up to be
people
the doctor.
that Julius hasn't played in so long that if you're under the age of 45 years old, you don't really understand how incredible he was.
Well, my hope is somewhere along the way, the NBA will accept ABA stats. Because right now,
Yeah.
Julius
Yeah.
is not in the top 10 in
He's
scoring.
Dan Issel.
Dan's
Yeah.
Dan, I mean, Moses Malone.
artists.
I mean, there's so many guys that if you give ABA stats to their NBA
They're,
stats,
yeah.
Did you have a ton of footage? Because that's part of it. People want to see it. They want to see Super John and Special K and all these guys in their moments in the ABA. I know because every year it gets harder to find the great footage.
well, you know, the guy that has the most ABA historical stuff lives here in Denver. And you should have him on the show because he helped us.
Yeah, he supports it. He's helped me out with some
and
images.
I hope they can't find any because I was
Probably in it.
I was an analyst on ABA games,
There we go.
and I was the worst analyst in the whole world. I remember doing an Indiana Memphis game. Indiana had a great team. That was as good a team as anybody in the NBA.
Well,
The
there's so many
Pacers.
good teams. I mean,
Yeah.
there's that run of Indiana. And then Utah Jazz jump. I mean, Utah Stars jump in there. And then you have the Kentucky Colonels throw in there. And then you get
The Nets.
Denver and Julius
Yeah.
Yeah.
final.
Yeah.
I mean, the last 4 or 5 years were won by quality basketball and athletic basketball.
They're fun to watch. I just remember I was growing up in New York, and I would watch the Knicks play, and the Knicks were good. But then you'd flip over and watch the Nets game, and it was like everything got turned up a notch. Everything was faster. The court was smaller. I mean, they were racing up and down. And to get to watch those Nets teams, because they were great teams as the ABA was drawing to a close, they were fun to see.
One of the things about financial, Indiana Pacers, if you go into the Indiana Pacers, their big sponsor is still Lucas Oil.
Yeah.
I think it's
Well, they sponsored the big
back then.
Colts building.
And a PA announcer, when a guy made a three-pointer on the Indianapolis Pacers team, he'd say, and that's good for another 10 gallons of gasoline for
Another giveaway. Another giveaway.
That's what the players would get. Oh, okay, I got 10 gallons of gasoline today, and gasoline was 40 cents a gallon or something. But that was so funny how they announced that the player, for like that guy hitting a home run, could win a suit in the old days.
There were only three or four threes
Speaking of baseball,
thrown up in a game most of those years.
You're a great baseball fan, as we all are. We grew up as baseball fans, and today is
The Hall of Fame
Day.
is going to be announced today, and since you're a Hall of Famer, you know what it takes. I mean, you've got the cred.
Yeah.
But it's interesting. Ron and I and Woody were chatting before you came in about, so Carlos Beltran, Andrew Jones are considered favorites to get in, and I was thinking, those are really, okay, good players. They don't make me go Hall of Fame. And I was just wondering your thoughts on, because you follow the game so closely, any of those guys or guys who've been missed in the past that stick out to you as far as baseball and the Hall.
Well, the one that sticks out to me is Barry Bonds. I mean, I grew up in Pittsburgh, and Barry Bonds was a great Pirate. I think before he got on the juice, he was still a hell of a baseball player.
Yeah.
Maybe the best baseball player I've ever seen. The only weakness I've ever saw in him is he didn't have an arm. He didn't have a gun from the outfield. But running the bases, hitting the ball, taking the extra base, he did all the little things. I wish we could remedy that, and Pete Rose and some of the other, other people that are being held back by
Roger Clemens.
Yeah.
He was talking about guys that cheated. I kept this because we said keep it for the show. I have a solution. The NFL, and I was on the NFL committee. I'm a baseball Hall of Fame voter, Heisman Trophy and everything else. The NFL years ago said, let's put in a bunch of guys at once. Remember that?
Yeah, let's catch up.
Yeah, we've left out too many guys. Why doesn't baseball, this is my grind my gears, why doesn't baseball say, okay, this year we got Beltran and Jones. Okay,
And
they're good. They're okay. But we're going to have a separate, and they do separates. We're going to put in everybody that cheated. And I mean either with what you call the juice or they cheated on the Houston
Banging
Astros.
the
Whatever.
drum.
Let's just put them in and get this fucking thing out of the way. Get it over with. We don't have to go with Bonds. We don't have to go with Rose. We don't have to go with the pitcher.
Clemens.
Clemens.
Let's just do this. And I don't care if you put it in a fucking room in the back of the Hall of Fame or put it down the street and say, these are the people that cheated or something. Put them in. They played
Especially
the
now.
game. They were the top of the Shoeless Joe Jackson. Give me a break. He was supposedly cheated in the World Series. He hit 4-15.
He had to cheat. He had no shoes.
Yeah. So that
you said
is
especially
and
now.
I'm passionate about that.
But what I'm saying is, do it now because baseball's hot now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Baseball has
They had a great
guys-
World Series.
Great World
I
Series.
turn on baseball games to watch a game now.
Should have
Yeah.
put Pete Rose in before he passed away. When you get that many hits, you can put, like Woody said,
Hit
put
leader,
it on
home
his
run
plaque,
leader,
but,
all those guys
Come
aren't
on.
in.
Come on.
Because it's funny to me because when I see guys like Beltran and Andrew Jones, obviously terrific players. Beltran comes with a little bit of luggage.
Sure.
He was part of the cheating in the
Bang the drum
2017
slowly.
Astros. But I always think of like Dale Murphy and Don Mattingly, guys who I've always thought, those guys are Hall of Famers. I mean, those guys were MVPs. These guys never were MVPs, Beltran or Jones. And it's like, let's get caught up. Let's get squared away. Let's figure it
It'd
out
be a
and
simple,
move on.
simple thing. Okay, we're going to put in 25 guys this year.
That's the worst voting there ever is, though, because that's the one where, like, Willie Mays comes up and is not unanimous. And I'm going,
Okay.
I didn't, there were a couple guys who didn't think Willie was good enough to get in the Hall of
Gee,
Fame.
I wonder why.
I also think the Hall of Fame, basketball Hall of Fame, and I'm pretty sure baseball is too stat oriented. What about the glue guy?
Yeah.
What about the Robert Horry, the Bruce Bowen, the Nate McMillan, the quiet guy that doesn't have numbers, but you take them off that team, they don't win it.
They're not any good without.
The
Yeah.
Derek Whites,
And you
those kind
mentioned
of guys.
Dale Murphy because that was a thing here. He came here and needed 2 home runs to reach 400 home runs. Nicest guy in the world. We were talking about nicest guy in the world. I was pulling so much for him to hit 2 home runs and he couldn't do it.
Couldn't
and
do
then
it.
they dumped him in Houston in a mall because I went to the press conference. They were staying in a hotel in the Houston Fashion Mall or
Galleria.
something. And I went, thank you. That's absolutely right. And they dumped Dale Murphy and I went, the Colorado Rockies could have something here, a guy that hits 400 with a home run,
But-
and yet you would rather dump him like you're going somewhere to win the World Series with that. And I wrote a column about that, and it's what you're talking about. Nobody pays attention to Robert Horry played for more
think he went
championship
7?
teams,
7 championships.
and
Yeah.
he was like
Glue guy.
an incredible. He's the guy that you
And
love.
Bruce Bowen in San Antonio.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
you're a floor burn guy. You're a glue
Well,
guy.
Nate
So
McMillan's a good
here's-
example.
appreciate
Nate
those
McMillan.
guys.
Here's what we're going to do, you and I, and we're going to include these 2 guys. They're younger guys. We're going to fix the Pro Basketball Hall of Fame. If you want to put in Russian coaches and high school coaches, go ahead and do that.
How
But
about
let's put
assistant coaches?
let's put in a few guys that actually people not paying attention to that actually played in the ABA. Let me talk to you about Fly Williams. Let's go P. Let's consider him. And baseball, let's just put in those 25. You can put them in the back of a 7-Eleven. I don't care if you put their.
It was John Daly's usually down at the Hooters or
You
down
make
the
a
road
good
from
point about
Augusta.
assistant coaches. There were a lot of great assistant coaches who worked for 20, 30 years on the bench and they never get recognized.
No
There's no area to recognize
But
them.
but it's true in football, and I was on the committee and everything. You're not putting former Broncos coach in there that took 3 different teams to the Super Bowl. Was with 3 different teams to the Super Bowl. I mean, Dan was.
Well, he was Mr. Football too. Like he did it.
and
He did it all
and
his
he's
whole
just,
life.
They tease he's dead, but they tease his family every year. Go, oh yeah, Mike Shanahan's going to get in. He would have gotten in this year. It hadn't been for.
I worry about that though. They did that with Red Miller in the Ring of Fame, and it always bugged me that they're like waiting for Red to win another game or something. 20 years after he's gone, they don't put him in. They don't put him in. He passed away between when they put him in and when they had the ceremony. It's like, what are you waiting for? If you want to. Don't be quite so provincial or protective of these halls of fame. Understand what they're really about, and these are about fans as much as it is about these brilliant voters. Who know more than anyone. Sometimes it's about the people who go to these halls of fame or care about them in their heart.
Yeah, and that's I agree with the people who say, well, media shouldn't be choosing the Pro Football Hall of Fame, and I agree with them. I said, let's bring in one media guy from every city, and the cities that don't have football anymore, like St. Louis. Let's bring in one former player and one fan that's been around for 30 years. And let's do it that way. Don't put it on the media. Don't put it on old coaches. No offense.
We can talk about how the coaching is losing its influence.
In what way? What would you say?
Well, I think in what way you want to talk about it.
Well, I mean, you said it's losing its influence, like with the present player or with what happened in the game.
I think money,
Yeah.
agents, off-the-court activities, distraction. I just think coaches don't have as much influence in the decision making.
But you left out one? What about ownership? That's we're seeing it in football. The guy who coaches the Buffalo Bills and has gotten them to 6 straight playoffs, and they dumped his butt yesterday. Guess what? They dumped you on the same year you were Coach of the Year.
I think you
hello.
wrote an article about that too, Woody. I think you were on the wrong side.
Coaches need
Yeah, but you're right. Anytime the players make 40 times what the coach makes, it's hard for the coach, other than minutes, to have any meaningful control over the players.
I mean, Parcells always said, if you want me to cook the meal, let me buy the groceries. I don't think coaches want the responsibility of buying the groceries anymore. But that's probably my fault.
That's all right.
It's all right.
You've been here a long time.
Someone wants you to come home
So
and
it's
get the
time to
groceries.
come home.
But the only thing it comes down to is, I don't think you can cut the coach out.
Yeah.
But I think, I'll tell you, one of my nightmares is I'm watching this AI stuff, and I read about robots. What's the first thing that might replace sports is a coach. Someone might be able to program a robot
To
to coach.
Just read
Yeah.
analysis.
Yeah.
Just
Wouldn't
crunch.
wouldn't it be better though that you have a woman coach before you have a robot coach?
That
There's
obviously, yes.
There's a woman
but-
that played in Colorado that could coach in, that.
But aren't
could
you
coach
glad
in
you
the NBA.
coached before the era of analytics?
That's-
So
Today's game.
you could actually look out at the court and see the game.
But
Analytics is good. It's valuable.
if
I
it's
think
used properly.
Yeah.
I think my last few years I was analytically correct. The way we played layups and threes and free
Right.
throws. But analytics aren't going to go away.
No. But the problem with analytics
But-
is simple.
but
If,
what-
if a guy is throwing a shutout in a World Series through 6 innings, and the analytics guys say, don't let him face the lineup a third time, so they take him out and bring in the reliever and lose the game, which happened with Tampa Bay and the Dodgers, it's bad. If you're coaching an NBA guy and the analytics says, don't play him over 30 minutes, but you're watching the game and the guy's just killing whoever it is, you're going to go with what you see on the floor.
No, I mean, per minute stuff drives me crazy
Yeah.
and now we got load management and
Yeah, well, don't even.
we have so many bad NBA games because nobody's playing.
No.
Yeah.
I have to ask you, since I'm such an asshole, are you and Carmelo ever going to get back together? Do you think? You've tried to bury that hatchet.
I have no problem, Melo and I, sitting down and getting back together. I have no problem with it. I mean, that's 20 years ago. He won a hell of a lot of basketball games for the Denver Nuggets and me.
Does he belong in the? There's the question about the number 15. Well, the Denver Broncos have 2 guys that wore the same uniform, so I think you can overcome
It's going to be tricky,
that.
though, if Jokic plays 5 more years and just shatters everything to consider.
It's not tricky. Nikola Jokic is everything
He's
that
the
Carmelo
15.
Anthony was not.
Yeah.
And, as a coach, I think I did a lot of good things for Melo, but could have done some things maybe a little better, a little different, that maybe pushed them further in a good direction. But he's a great player. And I have a lot of respect for that. And I know I was on the phone with a couple college coaches this morning before I came here about how hard it is to score. Well, Melo made scoring
Yeah.
easy.
Yeah.
Yeah, he did.
I mean, Melo was a scoring machine. And as a coach, I like balance. I probably like defense a little bit more
Maybe
than
have him
offense.
play the other side of the floor too, maybe.
But I do respect how, like George Gervin made offense easy.
Look easy, yeah.
So, I mean, the man was unbelievable. I mean, Gervin would go 16 for 18 in games. He never missed. And I know Gervin's in the Hall of Fame, but no one knows how good he was.
Yeah, not enough
And
people.
no one understands how good Spencer Haywood was here, or Connie Hawkins early in his career. Let's throw Rick Barry in there. Rick Barry had some of his best basketball in the ABA.
In the ABA.
And Gervin gave Ice a
Great name.
great name, didn't he?
George,
The Iceman.
we're all looking forward to the documentary
Sure
Soul
are.
Power, February 12th on Amazon. I know you put a lot of heart and soul, your work into it. I can't wait to see it, but I really appreciate, we all appreciate
We all
you
do.
taking the
Appreciate
time
you
to come
being
here
here.
and chat with us. It's really been fun.
Well, call me again. Don't have a lot on my calendar.
Just down the road.
Well, let's see. We could, if you'd like to do this every Tuesday, we can get rid of one of us.
Yeah,
I'd say
I'll
me,
volunteer.
probably, yeah.
You know what?
Oh.
With the
Thanks,
money we
George.
make, it's a tax issue.
Yeah,
It's
it really
really
is.
it's a
Yeah.
punishing tax bracket we go into. George Karl, the Hall of Famer, thanks for joining us here on
Thank you.
After the Horn.
Thanks, George. Great to see
Good
you.
reminiscing, guys.
That was fantastic. And for you out there, if you ever want to reach out to us, you can always find us at ATH@gorillasports.net. Hope you enjoyed it. Hope to see you back here again next week.